So, hello folks, welcome to the Isekai Book Club, also known as Help I've Died and Been Reincarnated as a Podcaster, your monthly Isekai Book Clubby show. I'm Real Soviet Bear, and with me are three wonderful people. Carnival, hello Carnival.
Hello, everybody.
Tia, hello Tia.
Wonderful people. Who are those, I wonder?
And Torpid, hello Torpid.
Hello, Torpid.
I didn't tell you say hello Torpid.
I know, but I don't care. I'm tired.
Anyway, I think we're all tired after watching this show. Tonight's show is Sword Art Online, specifically the first arc, because we don't really have time or the fortitude to get through all the seasons that have come up until now and all the additional materials. So for those who don't know, Sword Art Online is this massive isekai that kind of started the whole trend of isekais, where it's not the first one, but it's probably the biggest one in recent times, and it was written by Reiki Kawahara. And this is primarily a web novel that then became a light novel, then became a anime, and then that branched up into OVAs, games, movies, spin-offs, the entire media empire, basically. Unlike El Hazard, we're not really gonna say, who directed this or whatnot, because in the first arc alone, there's like a different director for every single episode. But what's worth noting is we're only covering the first arc. That is the first 14 episodes. They were released from July 2012 to October 2012, and they cover this whole story. And for the purposes of this podcast, we're gonna go full on with spoilers. So if you don't want Sword Art Online, the first arc spoiled, I guess tune out, or just mute the stream, but watch it, I guess. And also, we will not be considering what happens after the first arc. So it's a self-contained story, we're just gonna treat it as a self-contained story, and we're not really gonna take into account what happens afterwards when talking about characters. Anyway, as far as Sword Art Online goes, the premise is rather simple, and I think like these days much easier to grasp considering VR has been on the uprise. So in this bleak, dark future of 2022, everything looks normal. Like as you see the screenshot here, computers look the same, everything looks the same. But somebody invented the Nerve Gear, which is this full helmet VR thing that creates the most realistic possible video game, where everything that happens in the game looks realistic, it feels realistic, you can taste the food, and you control all that with your mind. Suffice to say, someone who works in video games, this is probably another 70 years at least away, my guess, but who knows.
Bear, you said this takes place in 2022, right?
Oh no, is it 2020?
That's like a year from now.
Oh shit. Well, it's still the dark bleak future technically from the point of recording.
I mean, it's pretty much the dark, bleak present.
I mean, it's 2022. Bear's right.
Yeah, it's still the future.
Also, if memory serves, like the nerve gear like hijacks brain signals or something stupid like that.
Yeah,
So you feel everything.
Yeah, you use your mind, and it's basically like super realistic lucid dreaming, I guess. In any case, how the big killer app for the Nerve Gear and the game that was basically built for the Nerve Gear. Also, Tia, your typing is overpowering everything.
Oh, sorry.
Yeah. So basically, the first killer app is Sword Art Online, and it's this standard issue fantasy MMO with no magic, just swords and blades and stuff like that, and has a limited launch. I believe only 10,000 copies. And the launch goes wrong, because everybody gets stuck in the game. They can't log out. If somebody tries to forcibly remove the nerve gear from a player, the nerve gear fries them. And why all this happens is because the creator, Akihiko, Akihiko
Kayaba.
yeah, basically goes, okay, here's the deal. You're all stuck here. You're not gonna leave. If you die in the game, you die in real life, so you only get one life. And also, because I'm a douchewaffle, I'm basically gonna make you all not look like your avatars, but actually like your real life selves, because the nerve gear can scan that as well. So everybody... So there's this very, very, quote, comical scene where it turns out, oh, the cute girl was actually an old guy, and weird stuff like that.
That is actually
Also in
one of
the
my
dub.
favorite scenes.
Yeah.
In the dub, a character literally says, if you die in the game, you die in real life. It's so good.
Oh yeah, that's kind of the premise of this, and we see all... another thing about the premise is, if they want to escape the MMO, they have to beat all 100 floors of the tower where the MMO takes place, and every floor has a boss, so that's 100 bosses, and it's basically, okay, everybody deal with it. And we follow the plot through the eyes of Kirito, who is a exceptional gamer, who was a beta tester of Sword Art Online, who is a solo player because he's that good. And he also is a beater, which is this mix of cheater and beta tester. Somehow that's kind of like an insult in the game. I don't know.
He's a beater, alright.
So stupid.
It is very stupid.
No,
Also-
so
It's not just he's a solo player because he's that good. It's also because he's edgy as hell.
He's basically...
It's because he has no people skills.
Essentially. And we follow the plot. We follow the events in Sword Art Online by Kirito and his friends over the span of 2 years. They somehow are stuck 2 years in this game, which does have real life consequences. But yeah, it covers all sorts of MMO-y things like trading, crafting, PvP, murders, griefing, you name it.
Oh god, it's so bad.
And now that everybody is probably familiar with what the hell Sword Art Online is, in case they weren't, let's talk about the impressions. So, Carnival, how do you enjoy Sword Art Online? I just need overall impressions.
let me put it in this simple sentence. I, an African-American person, enjoyed The Rising of the Shield Hero, a series noted for slavery and its apology Sword Art Online.
Okay, I don't know anything about Shield Hero, so does that mean Sword Art Online is bad?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Shield Hero's not good either.
Slavery Apologia, it's huge on it. Just fucking huge on it.
Okay, we be careful. You don't want to run out of material when we do Shield Hero, please.
Oh, I won't. Oh,
so,
I won't.
So, Tia, how do you feel overall about Sword Art Online?
First of all, that's a great screenshot. It just, good job on that one. Yeah, okay, so for those who don't know, I write fiction. Like, I'm not making a living off it yet, but I have like more novels than I can count under my belt in terms of, I've studied a lot of craft, I've read a lot of books. The writing in this is just not good. Like, narratively, the quality, it's like, it's kind of like Twilight or the Da Vinci Code, where the writing's really bad, and yet people still like it. And that's mostly because the main character is a giant Gary Stu, and everybody wants to be that guy. Yeah, there's just, like, that whole beaters thing, it's like, we want, just people to have irrational hatred, but we don't want to deal with, like, actual bigotry or racism in this story, so we're just going to make up some bigotry and hate the beta players. And then we're going to make it stupider by combining them with cheaters and calling them beaters. From a writing perspective, this story frustrates me so much.
Torpid, do you share these frustrations?
Well, first off, I fucking sat through 5 straight hours of this absolute dog shit yesterday. But basically, it's the story itself is this miserable meandering bullshit where the time skips are meaningless, but they happen all over the place. Progress is completely incomprehensible throughout the entire thing. The plot doesn't exist until the beginning and the end. And it's just, the main character is a lazy self-insert who's good at everything and all the ladies want he. And it's just, everything exists to service the main character's existence and his ego in the worst way.
So I basically agree with all that. I thought the game the game and the anime are both very bad. By that I mean the game within the anime. But for me, most of it was because I work in game dev. I like all the statements in this, even though it's based on a story from early 2000s. It's still really weird how they go all over the place with various. Oh, dueling is bad. This game is balanced. This game is not balanced. And other weird ways how skills work. It's kind of like to me, it feels like when you have a movie and you have a hacker scene, and somebody writes that hacker scene and it has nothing to do with actual hacking. This is kind of how I feel about the way it presents a video game and Sword Art Online. So as to say, I did not enjoy it. I thought it was bad, and I'll go into it in more detail as we all will. So let's talk a bit about the general. How can I say this? The general rules of the plot and the MMO.
Such as they are.
Sergio, how do you all feel about this premise of the Nerve Gear VR? This idea of, oh, it's so real. It's like real life.
I don't even think it was an unusual concept to this series, because when did this come out?
The first.
I think the original novel was in 2002, and when was the anime?
The anime was 2012.
Because I'm pretty sure Hack Sign predates this.
Yes, it does.
And Hack Sign did it better.
Dorva?
So the Nerve Gear itself isn't that the VR dream, basically? The ideal?
Yeah, it's essentially
Total immersion.
You have total immersion. You only need a bed. You don't need actual physical space. You don't need input other than your brain, and it looks so real. And yeah, it is basically the pinnacle of how you can reach VR.
It's fine. We'll get it in 3 years. But
yeah, the VR concept is actually, like, as a concept, it's pretty good. And I think you could have made a good story out of just having a bunch of characters dick around in this MMO and play around, kind of with, it's so real, where do we draw the line between what do we think of as real and, what's in this MMO? Like, this food makes me happy, but, it's not actually food. Is it still food? Kind of a little more of the philosophical dealings, or, kind of the immersion, the game immersion, rather than this whole completely this forced, you must all fight to the death to conquer my shitty game kind of thing.
Well, like, they even sort of addressed that early on, and I think, like, the first episode, they were talking about how the food tastes alright, but also one of the characters had ordered a pizza ahead of time to come in right on time.
Yeah.
Because it doesn't fill you up.
What makes me more nonsensical about the Nerve Gear is that it says it uses, like, me being a science nerd, but it's like it uses microwaves to do this, which I'm completely astounded, because, like, if it's using brain scans, why did it would have been something? Microwaves don't do that. It would have been better to use, like, an MRI machine or something else, or just come up with something else other than using something that actually exists and we have a good knowledge of how the properties work of.
Gotta heat up a
Get outta
burrito
here
in my
with your
Nerve Gear.
long-
Yeah, I mean, I don't particularly mind the Nerf gear. Like, for me, it's always, when you make these kind of stories, I'm okay with fantastical premises. Like, okay, yeah, here's this wonder tool that we have, and we needed to get the plot rolling. And I don't really care about that as much as how they handle the rest of the plot. And as Tia said, they could have gone quite places with that, but they only ever, like, go surface level with it, like with the food, or, with with people like thinking it's still a game even though they're stuck in it and has no real life consequences, stuff like that. Um, but
See, you could have actually done a really interesting plot, kind of, mirroring how the internet is nowadays, where people feel like once they get behind an avatar or, an anonymous screen name, that, they do things that they might not necessarily do in real life, for better or for worse. And kind of in a way, the whole kind of, I'm really kind of torn between whether it was actually good, the whole mirror thing where they made your avatars look like yourselves. But they when they did that, they kind of eliminated that whole, people won't necessarily act the same way if they're under a pseudonym, because now they're not.
yeah, it sounds like you described Hypnospace Outlaw, which recently came out, which people should check out. Anyway, in terms of the rules of the MMO, so this kind of takes a bunch of video game concepts and jumbles them around. So obviously, in an MMO, if you die, you respawn. But as the plot wants it to be, it basically goes, okay, the MMO is designed with respawning in mind, but we modify the rules, so if you die, it's permadeath, you're dead, bye. And there's also a lot of other things, like items degrade. I'm not sure if resources are finite or not. They imply that they are, but they've been there for 2 years, and so I guess like they later say that resources do respawn, that there's some economy being balanced. So they're not really clear on that. But in general, how did you feel the game itself felt and the game world? Tia.
It was less that they weren't clear on it, and more that they blatantly contradicted themselves, or possibly that Kirito is full of shit because right in episode 1 he says, we got to get to the next town right away, because if we don't hurry, all the grinding and all the EXP around here is going to be used up, and that's it. Which, one, is not how MMOs work. But like 11 or 12 episodes in, and it's like 2 years later, and like still like 30% of the initial players are still in the base town, and they're not starving to death, they're fine, they're just hanging out. Yeah, I think that was one of the things where it was introduced to make false tension, and then it didn't really work, because you have to think those things through before you make those decisions, and then they decided, okay, that's actually not how it works.
I mainly read that as just, maybe the beta test diminishing, like, had limited resources because it was a beta test, and therefore it wasn't intended to be a total economy. Now, that doesn't make it not a good, like, actively saying this to create the full tension thing, incorrect. But that might have just been, at that point, my mind's just papering over some of the more minor excuses because of bigger problem.
Yeah, I said, Kirito could be full of crap.
It was full of crap. Having just watched this the other day, basically what he meant is that the main area is going to be so clogged with players and waiting for respawns and all that taking the other path was actually more ideal because of that.
Oh, I did not. Were you watching the dub or the sub?
I was watching the dub.
See, in the sub,
okay.
it doesn't sound like that at all. In the sub,
yeah.
In the sub, it literally sounds like, oh, all the XP is gonna run out. Like it's gonna run out, and then you're screwed. So that's why he wanted to go ahead.
I appreciate that the dub tried to give it a better continuity.
Okay, so if anybody watched Sword Art Online, please watch the dub, I guess.
Yeah, actually the dub's pretty alright, all things considered. But god, fuck this game. It's a nightmare mechanically, and it's also wildly inconsistent in universe. Because like at one point, so there's the levels. The levels make no sense. Because at one point Kirito's slumming it with some dudes who are 20 while he's like level 40 and they can't see it for some reason. As well as the fact that why the fuck is he down there then? And on top of that, at one point he mentions that a character will gain some levels if they equip this better gear. But also they don't really address that ever again.
That's weird. Yeah, for me it was just like a nightmare. Like none of it made sense. And
It is.
Kirito,
Wasn't that the episode with the pet mechanic, which is never addressed again, and it has like one character?
Yeah, like what was that? It's there and it never comes back again. It makes no sense.
you didn't even see any other person in the entire series with a pet. Like she was the only person that had a pet.
Also, that's the other thing too, is in like the first episode, he describes that there's like this potential for an infinite number of skills, which makes no sense, because literally at the end of the show, the villain mentions that he programmed in specific skills, and like there's a limit to what you can do. And also how you get skills doesn't make any sense, because it's incredibly arbitrary. And also the actual action of doing abilities in that show is based on holding and then doing an action, which makes the actual action of the show look incredibly fucking terrible.
Oh, you mean people just doing a stare down and then jumping to do a thing all the time?
Yeah.
Yeah. No, this is for me, like, it hurts me on a professional level, but I'm not too petty about it. The things that hurt me more are the contradictions, especially when Kirito goes like, oh yeah, MMOs are inherently unfair because they use a leveling system, and then 2 episodes later in the damn murder mystery episode, he goes, oh yeah, Sword Art Online's dueling is inherently fair, and properly balanced. And I'm like, excuse me?
Oh yeah, that's the other thing, is other weird mechanics. Like the duel system, where if somebody is asleep and you break into their house, you can have their hand activate the duel so you can kill them in a town in their house.
No. So how it works is, if you're not in a city, you can die. If you're in a city, your HP will never reach 0. So what happens is, if somebody finds you asleep outside of a safe zone, then because for some reason you don't wake up while you're asleep in the virtual reality, they guide your hand so you confirm the dual acceptance, because I guess everybody can see everybody's UI. Although then they can't see each other's names for some reason, but whatever. And then they accept it, and then because you don't actually feel pain in the MMO, then they just keep stabbing away at the person who's asleep until they die. That's how it works, which is really dumb.
They can't feel pain, but they can taste.
They can taste spicy food. Yeah, it's ridiculous.
They can't
feel pain. Good.
They can't feel pain, but they sure can react like they're in pain whenever they get stabbed or such.
Or kicked in the nuts, or punched, or yes.
Yeah, like, especially after 2 years, like, I would have expected, like, if you get your ass kicked and your, like, HP is down to, like, 10% or something, you should still be fine to move, because you shouldn't be feeling anything. You should basically be a zombie. But pretty much, like, all of the characters still react as if they feel pain and fatigue, which, again, doesn't logistically make sense.
Yeah.
It's also like, why do they need to eat food or sleep? Because they're fucking constructs in a game.
I don't know, maybe there's a resting mechanic. It's really weird. I just wish that, like, when the creator of the game dropped down and said, okay, permadeath enabled, he also said, okay, pain enabled, just so he could drive the point home and, like, stop any weird contradictions.
See, that would have been a good idea.
Turn off my pain inhibitors.
Exactly. One thing, though, I did like is kind of in Sword Art Online, and it touches it now and then, is how people basically form their own society in the MMO. And this includes guilds, people opening up shops, just doing various odd jobs instead of going out and adventuring. It's actually like quite common that some characters later are basically blacksmiths or chefs or whatnot, because they're like, okay, I don't want to risk my life and get killed, but I'm gonna do something useful. I thought that was kind of neat. What do you all think, Torpid?
I do like the idea of them settling down and like forming their own like little economies, and they're settling into niches. Though the character in this screenshot, yeah, he runs a shop, but also he works for the front line, climbing the tower, and it's kind of strange. But in general, I do think it's kind of neat. Everyone settling in, chefs, traders, all that. Though they don't really address it that meaningfully. You just see a day in the life of a blacksmith, and also the occasional visits to this guy, who, of all the characters, I think appears the most outside of the specific ones.
Yeah, he's kind of like a recurring character.
Yeah, he shows up in the opening animation, so you know he's important. Sort of.
I think all the characters we'll be covering actually appear in either the opening animation or the like promo image, even though they sometimes just are there for one episode and that's it. Tia, how did you feel about MMO Society?
See, I actually like I said before. With I would have preferred a story about just dicking around in a VR MMO. I actually liked the weapon smithing and the crafting and the cooking, and kind of the side questing things that really kind of bring an RPG in general to life. Because if you're just running around killing monsters all day, that gets boring. And I mean, both from an RPG narrative sense, and also from a just a, if you're stuck in this game, you're going to want to do something besides kill monsters. You're going to go crazy.
Well, some people did go crazy. In different ways. Some became mass murderers. Some kind of gave into despair. There's this one extremely bleak scene near, I think, the end, like one of the final episodes of the arc, where it just shows a montage of people jumping off a cliff because they can't take it anymore.
That was super early on.
Was it early on? I think that was when they had
One of them was early on, because it was the one guild guy, but the montage shows up when Yui is talking.
Yeah. So the one,
she's like, all of these people are going insane, and I can't do anything because my creator's a dick.
Yeah. So yeah, it kind of shows that a lot of people didn't cope with it, which seems reasonable considering what situation you're in. What are your thoughts, Carnival?
Like, I didn't like it strictly in this series, mainly because I read the first novel before even an idea, but it's general arc of the plot. So this kind of ended up making everything feel like, okay, this is dragging everything down because it feels meandering. Normally, I would like seeing more of the society, or if it was more developed, I probably would have enjoyed it more. But because it's just, we go to this one shop to go see this one person every time, it's like, okay, why are we wasting time on this when you can be, actually moving the plot along in a direction that feels meaningful?
Okay, yeah, actually, Carnival did bring up something kind of that really bugged the piss out of me about this show. Is that the setting itself, they do nothing with it. It's never expanded upon. It's just this set dressing for this drama, but nothing about it is meaningful, and you never really see any of the gears moving or learn anything about the world itself, because the world is just kind of there to service all the rest of the other bullshit.
Yeah, it almost feels like a fantasy EVE Online. It's just like, we don't have any, like, I mean, EVE Online does have its own plot, but like more like, that's not the focus. It's more people doing their own thing. That's the focus. But yeah, there's no story like, why are there these 100 floors? Why are there these bosses? And it's also really weird because you don't usually like beat an MMO, so that's also kind of weird because, okay, if the game was designed with 100 bosses, what was the plan after they killed the 100 bosses? Just like more content updates? Like you don't even do boss fight repeats or anything?
Like,
go ahead.
That, about the world, they don't do anything with it, and it's so frustrating. It's just, all of it's just there. I hate it so much.
I think going from a narrative point of view, I think this is like, if to develop that world, this would have been a story that would have benefited from multiple POVs. Kind of like going back to Hack Sign, you don't follow the main character Tsukasa around all the time. Sometimes they're talking to Bear, sometimes they're dealing with the other characters whose names I can't remember at this point, because I saw it back when I was in college, and that was a really long time ago. But because those characters had different roles, they could show off different sides of the MMO that they were in, and not just Tsukasa's view, which was kind of limited because he doesn't really know what's going on. And even though, they stuck with one point of view and then they didn't really utilize it, because Kirito is supposed to be this beta tester. He's supposed to know a lot about the system, about the game, at least more than your average person, but he doesn't really show any of that, in that his only interest seems to be the fighting part of it. Like, he doesn't really seem to level up, he doesn't level up his cooking skills, obviously. He doesn't level up his, every time every time there's a skill that's not related to fighting, he has to go to someone else. And it's not just that, those other people are specialized in it, it's that he just has no interest in it. And so we don't really get much of that. We just get it through his perspective of this person who's not interested in it. And so, yeah, it really limits what you can do.
And I would honestly think that would be really interesting as a character choice of, like, this person is just clearly not interested in any of the non-combat mechanics of the game. That's not something that necessarily is a bad thing, but it would be an interesting character choice if we had other things to contrast it with.
Mm-hmm.
So another thing, first off, is the beta tester thing is largely fucking meaningless past the beginning episodes, just because they only got past the first few floors in the beta, so none of that fucking matters.
It's fantasy racism.
Yeah. Second off, Death actually mentioned something that is interesting. Not that she even realized it. It's wait until they patch in the basement floors, because there is actually an episode that addresses there's this weird labyrinth growing underneath the starter town, and nobody knows why, and nobody's explored it, and then it's just forgotten about.
Yeah, because I think the idea was the more floors they clear, the deeper the basement spawns or expands or whatever. But yeah, they never do touch that beyond one episode.
Another thing is the NPCs. They basically never show them. But in one episode, at the very beginning, Kirito will not shut the fuck up about how he wants to defend the NPCs and how their lives are just as meaningful. And it is complete horseshit.
Yeah, it's not touched upon why or how. Like, why does he feel like that? Do NPCs actually have feelings? Later we realize one of them at least does, things like that. Also, in general, NPCs don't really do anything in this show. Like, I don't think I've seen a single NPC anywhere.
Well, partly because unless somebody's got their status screen open, you can't tell the difference between a player character and an NPC, because it's not like they have signs around. It's not like they wear name tags.
Yeah, but it's like you have these shopkeepers who are players, and it's like player-owned shops, but then you go, well, they look like NPCs, but they're not, so, what do NPCs do? Like, I have no clue what NPCs do in this game. But yeah. But speaking of, plots, we mentioned the plot doesn't really go anywhere, aside from the beginning and the end. How did you feel about all the filler? I feel like it's safest to view this entire show as a collage or collection of mini stories, because otherwise it's just nothing happening.
That was exactly my thought.
Yeah, so were there any individual stories you enjoyed? Carnival, let's start with you.
I enjoyed the first half of the murder mystery. Right up, solved how they were doing the thing about how they were solved. I was actually kind of interested, and then everything after that completely ruined any goodwill that the first half got.
Oh, what part actually ruined it for you?
The fact that once we get to see the original Grimlock, whatever. Wait, no, no, when we start seeing how, he ended up killing his wife, and then the reason he killed his wife, I started just yelling, no.
Oh,
Because, my wife became a totally different person, quote unquote. And what's in the MMO? I gotta kill her to protect her memory, blah, blah, blah. And it's like, I was completely just any sort of like goodwill or anything that I might have had better memories of. Just all the goodwill left I had for the series was burned away by that.
see, I didn't mind that. I thought that was like okay because I viewed it more as because they didn't like put his reasoning in a positive spotlight. Like everybody present when he confessed was like, you're deplorable. Like this makes no sense. Why would you do that? And the show doesn't seem to put him in a justified spotlight. So I was kind of okay. It's just like okay, he has an extremely shitty motivation, but it's still a motivation, unlike certain big bad evil dude that we'll go into later. But I did like the murder mystery. I thought it was interesting. Even you have to kind of glance over the fact that they didn't realize some basic things. Like it took them a really long time to actually remember. Oh wait, you can't actually die in a town. But other than that, I liked that one the most. Torpid, what about you?
So all of the mini plots, to me at least, were kind of bullshit. There were a few gags I kind of enjoyed, like Kirito not understanding sex. But overall, it was kind of awful. Like when they got really baby happy, despite them being 16 and 17. Or God, the fishing was so bad.
I hate the fishing so much.
For those who need a bit more context, there is this entire arc where Kirito and Asuna, who have become married and have moved away to a forest resort or whatever, find an abandoned child, and they get very. They start acting like parents. They basically adopt her, and it gets really weird because they're both 15 and 16.
16 and 17.
Sorry, 16 and 17. Yeah. So, that's why it's kind of like very weird and very creepy.
And the whole married to having the kid to losing the kid thing happens in under 2 weeks.
Oh
It happened in
god.
the span of like 3 episodes.
Shinzo Abe approves.
No, it is really bad. Like this show definitely has this like wavelength of okay, now you're getting creepy. Okay, now you're back to normal again. Now you're getting creepy. Okay, now you're just overdoing it. You're going off the rails now. And what about you, Tio? Did you enjoy any of the stories?
There's one particular story that I actually really did like. So in the first episode, in the background, you see this like youngish looking guy that's like hitting on this cute girl. He's like, "Hey, you want to form a party? Let's hang out." And so they presumably go off to form a party. When the whole mirror thing happens, they both discover that the young guy is not young and the girl is not a girl. They're both middle-aged men. And they're like, "Wait, you're not a guy. You're not 20." But 8 episodes later, so like a year and a half or 2 years into the story, Kirito runs into like both of these characters. They're like random party members. They are still a party together. I love them. I want to protect them. I hope they became drinking buddies after this was all over.
I completely missed that. I did not notice them appearing again.
It's not that they were older, it's they were both young, but they were just fucking nerds. And yeah, the cute girl ended up being a guy who was a fucking nerd.
And he is still wearing the pink armor 8 episodes later.
You know what? Fucking good on him.
Wow, how did I miss that? Okay.
There was a background joke in the first episode, and then later on when it appears as well.
I feel that's too clever of a joke for this show.
That was 100% the animation team.
Yeah, no, that's the animation team. This entire series has a bunch of great production value put into it that is just dragged down by the story. The story, everything, all the effort that went into making this is wasted by the story.
Yuki Kajiura is fucking wasted on this series, and it offends me so deeply on a personal level, because I absolutely goddamn adore her, and this pisses me off.
So this is Sword Art Online, which means if
She
there's
also did the music for Hackstein,
oh,
so
that's
appropriate.
appropriate. Yeah.
She did a bunch of stuff, dude.
So this is Sword Art Online, and if there's swords, there's stabbing, and if there's stabbing, there's fights. So let's talk about the fights, because this is kind of an action anime sometimes. Torpid, you sound like you were crying. Would you like to talk first?
Oh god. Like, they try to make it look flashy and everything, but because of the way it works mechanically and that they try to keep that, everything is fucking slowed and bogged down and feels super shitty until Kirito unlocks his special ability. But then they still make it feel slow and shitty later on and meaningless, and all of the action just feels terrible whenever it decides to rear its ugly head.
So you mind explaining to the listeners how the combat mechanics work?
So essentially, to use your moves, the way it is you hold a pose to charge up your ability, and when it's activated, you then release it to use your ability. You can do this in motion as well, and that happens a few times with some of the faster characters. But overall, you get people just standing there, power squatting as they get ready to charge something, and it's awful.
So basically, this is an MMO where everybody channels their abilities. Carnival, how did you like the fights? I know, did we lose Carnival?
Oh yeah, I forgot to mention, the final fight is the biggest wet fart in the fucking series.
The final fight is
Both the
like,
final fights.
the final fight is so boring. So yeah, for those who don't know, basically they have to clear these 100 floors, as I said. They don't clear all 100 floors. They get to the 75th floor, kill the boss there, and then
It's so bad.
and then they realize that one of the party members, a prolific player and guild leader, is actually the creator of the game in disguise. And then he has a 1v1 with Kirito, or rather offers a 1v1 to Kirito, where if Kirito wins, the game is completed. That's it. And it's the most boring fucking fight ever.
Also, in that he reveals the secret behind Kirito's special ability, which is dual wielding, and the way you get that is by being the player with the fastest reaction times in the game. And it's so good!
Look, the fight
the
scenes were so bad. I've started fast forwarding them at some point just because, like, I just cannot. I don't want to waste any more time than I have to with this series, so I just start fast forwarding through fight scenes.
I mean, I thought some of the boss designs were cool, but also, like, not cool enough to save anything. No, it's just like, the fight is literally just there. Like, it's one of those, how can I say this? Like, if this anime had a better story and the fighting was this quality, I would just be like, okay, there's just some fighting. That's fine. I don't care. But because the story isn't that good and the fighting isn't that good, you're kind of just like wondering, okay, do I want to watch them talk and be angry, or do I want to watch them fight and be kind of bored?
Yeah, I mean the animation, it just felt kind of like it's. They had some good shots, they had some good setups, but overall it just felt very like mainstream production. And so listener, the 75th final boss, which is the actual last in-game NPC boss they fight in the game, they go into the back half of episode 13 with they start, wailing on this monster. It kills people like instantly that are all like really high level because they've only brought their best to this fight. And they're like, what are we going to do? How are we going to fight this thing? And that's where the episode ends. And at the very beginning of the next episode, the thing is down to a sliver of health and they kill it.
I thought it was dead outright at the beginning of the next episode.
You see the final blow.
It is the worst setup.
To be fair, they do that with a lot of the fights. Like, there's this there's this fight when Kirito needs to kill Santa to get a resurrection spell, which is sure is a sentence. And you see Santa with several health bars, and you're like, oh no, how is Kirito gonna solo this? This thing has several health bars. You don't actually see in the anime something with multiple health bars until then. And then just cut to the scene of Kirito walking away, having defeated the monster. And you're like, what? Like, at least do something. Like, how did he do that? How did he get out of that? I almost expected Kirito to like walk away and be like, wow, I can't believe I beat that monster.
Yeah, but the whole thing with the end of episode 13 is, how are we going to, beat this incredibly powerful monster? And then they fail to answer that question, because the next episode, oh, it's dead. It's dead.
Yeah, the only interesting fight is against the giant kobold thing, which is the first big boss fight you actually see, and they actually show the thing, why it's dangerous, why their plan falls through, and makes like comments like, "Oh, it has different moves from the beta or a different weapon from the beta that means it has different moves." Blah blah. Like that was kind of interesting, but then everything else is just like, it's a thing that does a lot of damage. And it's a big monster. Okay.
So that's the other thing too, is it's usually just bullshit happens to beat the bosses. Like in the case of a later one, Kirito decides, oh yeah, I'm gonna use my second sword that I decided to hide because I didn't want to know anyone to know that I'm the specialist boy. Or another one of my favorites is when he's doing the duel with the big bad before he establishes he's the big bad. In an episode where they stripped away Asuna's agency and decided, we're gonna fight over her, she gets no real say in it. Kirito is going at this dude so hard, literally just by smacking his shield over and over. And then he cheats and wins the fight, even though he would have won it otherwise. And this is weird, because then, when he actually is the big enemy, and he's dueling him again, Kirito once again keeps slamming on the shield, but loses, and dies, but doesn't die.
Yeah, that's like really damn weird, because we establish that Kirito is the better fighter, and this guy only won because he had to cheat, and then we go like, when it's a fair fight, Kirito still almost loses, practically loses. It's a double KO. It's very dumb.
We got a fridge! We got a fridge!
So that's the other thing too, is out of their ass they pull, oh yeah, Kirito's so strong-willed in this very moment that he avoids fully dying to kill this man.
Oh yeah, he gets stabbed and his HP goes to 0 and he's despawning, but his willpower wills him to not despawn, and that catches the enemy off guard, and he stabs the big bad, and it's a double KO, but technically he still wins.
And a good way to do it. Go ahead, Tia.
The best part is they had a really good Chekhov's gun that they could have used to explain that, because you mentioned earlier that he fought Santa for a resurrection item, which can resurrect a player that's been killed within 10 seconds.
I expected them to use that! I expected them to use that!
You forget that he gave it away to Klein.
Because the character that has it is there! I was like, pull that out of your ass and be like, look at this thing we set up way back in episode 3. It is now in use. That would have been brilliant.
Yeah.
No.
Klein was paralyzed like everyone else in the room, except for Asuna for some weird reason.
Klein
Because
doesn't have it.
Asuna had to
He gave it back
die.
he gave it back to Klein. Klein gave it back to Kirito.
Yeah, it's really weird. I don't like the fight. It feels like this entire like story in terms of fights was completely overscoped, because I think how like it was initially written was, oh, this is me assuming. Okay, here's 100 floors. Every floor has a boss, and they're like, okay, cool. So here's the first boss, and he writes them in. Here's the second boss, and it's like, oh shit, I have to do this 98 more times. Fuck. Like that's a lot of big set pieces to write.
We don't even get that much in the original novel. It's like we basically jump around. So let me tell you what happens in the original novel. We get basically the first episode. We get some digging around. No, we get the first episode. Then we get to the first duel with the big bad. Then we have the honeymoon, except the honeymoon doesn't include Yui, and then it's the final fight.
Oh,
That's the progression there. We
Okay.
still have the horrible sex scene, but
Nice. So,
Yes, Carnival, tell us about the horrible sex scene.
All right, I'm gonna let me go. Just
No,
go.
no,
and
we
No.
gotta save that one. We gotta save that.
We need to move on. I think like we didn't like the fights. I'd say universally. I'd say at best they're boring, and at worst they're like, why are you skipping interesting things? But you know, all is fair in love and war. So let's talk about love. Let's talk about the romance in Sword Art Online. Tia,
Oh, no.
what are your impressions of the romance subplot in Sword Art Online between Kirito and Asuna? I don't think there's any other romance subplots. Well, aside from everybody having the hot for
Everybody
Kirito.
else wanting to bone Kirito?
Yeah.
Yeah. Uh, in its defense, I think it's pretty true to video game romances in that the main character gets the woman as a trophy who is not really a character on her own. Like, Asuna could have been a much better. Like, the first time Asuna shows up, she's a loner. She covers her face with a hood. She doesn't really seem to know a lot. She's like seems to be a newbie at MMOs. We don't really find out, why did she decide to try this MMO? And when she shows up again 4 or 5 episodes later, she's like the vice captain of the head of this guild, and she has a completely different personality. And it was kind of like, it kind of feels like the author, in the middle of writing this, decided, oh yeah, I should have somebody that wants to bang Kirito because he's hot. All the ladies should want him. But I literally have not written any female characters yet. Oh wait, here's one that was back in episode 2. Let's just pull her.
Okay. I'm sorry. I'm sorry. Please. He had almost choice from 2 female characters, except he killed the other one.
Let me make a point here. There were nothing. The only characters I basically remember from the novel at this point were Kirito, Asuna, and Big Bad. I don't remember any other person cover that basically what this arc covers from the light novels.
Yeah. Anyway, continue. Tia, I interrupted you rudely.
But yeah, the amount of female characters in this series is really not good. Like, I'm pretty sure this does not pass Bechdel Wallace, which is not really surprising for a shonen series. But yeah, like, y'all refresh my memory. Are there any women in this series that don't want to bang Kirito?
There was
besides Yui, because that would be really creepy.
So
there was the PKer.
The player killer.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was I was to say. Like, there was she didn't want to bone Kirito. I think the lady from the murder mystery. I can't remember her name.
Oh yeah.
One of the suspects who was actually orchestrating the thing.
One of the potential victims who is actually the one setting this up. Yeah, she didn't want to bone him.
Yeah,
she had revenge on her mind. I liked her.
Yeah, that was so. We have 2 female characters who didn't want to bone Kirito. Otherwise, I think everybody wanted to bone Kirito. Carnival, did you like the romance?
No, I'm already not like a major fan of romance in just in general in works, but it's just, but like this is just like, okay, stop this. Even the worst harem animes that that they don't have a chance still gives the side characters bigger chances than this show has.
To be fair, none of the side characters get too many chances in this show. I feel like they get 1 episode at best, and then they're like thrown away and forgotten.
Fair. It's just, it feels completely like not even ancillary. It's just like this was on this piece of paper, but not even the sticker's not even attached well. It's just there.
Bear, we forgot to mention that the first character that shows any signs of sexual interest in Kirito is the character that reminds him of his little sister.
No, there was episode 3.
Yeah, there was episode 3.
The girl who dies.
Yeah, the girl who loves him and dies.
Oh yeah.
Rage Guild.
It's fine, Tia. It's hard for me to keep track of all the ladies that wanna hang with Kirito too. Torpo, did you
All the
want?
ladies that were fridged so that he might suffer.
So, like, I'm a sucker for actually a decently well-written romance, but this is fucking trash. They read like two garbage lovesick teens, and on a good day, that's what they are. But usually, as my note, oh fuck me.
We have lost Torpotypist, everybody.
Oh no.
I believe he died in the podcast.
He died in the broadcast, so he dies in real life.
Exactly. That's
No.
we operate by the rules of every isekai we cover. That's how this goes.
That's not. But what about the good ones? They actually do interesting things. They have different rules.
Yeah, I do yeah. Now this shot
Actually-
that people might see, just to like kind of like show off, like explain why the romance between Asuna and Kirito feels as bad as it is. She's basically like when there's a time skip and she's shown as this vice president of the guild, she's like super competent, super able. Like she has her own bodyguard layer. She's extremely important. Like everything is indicating that she is like perfectly capable of doing everything. But for some reason, she's enamored by Kirito. She wants Kirito everywhere, and Kirito keeps fighting on her behalf. And as Torp said earlier, there's this weird duel where these two guys are fighting over a choice she should be making. So in general, it's like it feels like she's written to be competent, just to write off most of the criticism of her being a token female, even though she kind of ends up being that for most part. What else do we want to? Let's talk about the pacing in general. I know we've mentioned that the pacing is mostly filler, but like, what was the hardest thing for you to follow in this anime, Tia?
One of the really bad pacing decisions was it takes 2 months to beat floor 1, and 4 or 5 episodes later we're on floor 50, and the remaining 74 the remaining 74 floors that they get through are beaten in a total of 22 months. This math does not add up.
Yep, I agree. Yeah, generally it feels like it jumps around quite a lot. Like, I was very confused by the time skips. I was like, wait, did I, like, accidentally run, did I accidentally run a wrong episode? Like, actually, the first time there's a time skip and we see Asuna as, like, a vice president, I'm like, wait, did I accidentally run episode 6 instead of episode 3 or something?
Yeah, as you pointed out, it's really a lot easier to grok the whole series if you see it as a series of short stories rather than a cohesive arc.
Yeah, definitely. Hey, Torpe, welcome back. You want to share some thoughts?
So, as I was saying, like, on a good day, they just seem like lovesick teens, but as I was going to say, probably one of the biggest notes I put multiple times when writing my notes was Asuna is here to suck Kirito's dick and make him look good. Because that is what she does the entire fucking time that they are in a relationship. She didn't have any personality to begin with, but somehow she has even less of one when they become a couple. And it is the worst possible thing. She exists in service of his ego, and that is about it.
Look, Torpin, we only know they had missionary. This was an explicit
With
scene.
the lights off. Oh yes, actually. Oh god, I have the line and I hate it. Basically, the original web novel had an explicit sex scene because why the fuck not? I guess, and it ends with the beautiful, beautiful quote of 2 years worth of semen made a glopping noise as it flowed endlessly into Asuna. 2 years worth of semen.
I am glad that line is not in the anime adaptation.
No shit.
But anyway,
Theirs was more press F to have sex.
just hold F because you channel all the skills in this game, so you have to like hold them in and then let them loose.
But if we're going to the topic on hand, though, I agree with T 100%. Like, the time scale is complete fucking nonsense, and you never really get a feel for how they're progressing. It just happens. And all of it happens off screen.
Yeah,
It's really weird.
I'm almost like surprised that at least they had the decency that every time Kirito comes across a new character, he still acts like he doesn't know them, so you kind of get them introduced. It would probably be worse if he just, oh, 2 months later, oh, here's Kirito's best friend who he met during the time skip. How did you not know about this person? And you're just like trying to figure out who they are, but at least they don't do that.
That's the other thing, too, is like during all these short stories, he has like a different personality each one.
Yes.
Which, I mean, he has no personality in general, but like, he goes through these different moods for no reason, and they don't really string together in any cohesive fashion.
That's because he's a teenager. Obviously. Anyway, Carnival.
If it just the pacing is probably what killed me the most. Because knowing what the ending is, it's like just seeing. Like, I don't mind short story formats if the series had opened up, like T has mentioned before, of just, oh, they're just digging around in virtual reality. That sets up the expectation that the entire series is going to be more about just short stories in general, aside from, but because it's opened on, we have the death game, get to the 100th floor and live. That sets the idea that there's going to be a continuous line of a story with maybe some branches instead of the zigzag that we have, and it just completely ruins any expectations of pacing.
Yeah, I pretty much agree with all of that.
Also, the timescale thing lends further into the feeling of the author had no clue what they were doing, because once again, it ends at floor 75. It's supposed to be 100 floors of Vinecrad, but they ended at 75.
Oh, you never expected that, did you? That's called good writing.
Oh.
Comes from your left field. Anyway, we're now going to move to the meat of the discussion, which is the characters. And before we start talking about the characters, just like one note, so this is an arc of 14 episodes. There isn't too much screen time for all the characters, but I tried to at least like pick out some of the major ones. At least like, okay, this character appears in a lot of episodes, or there's an entire episode just with this character. So we'll spend more time on some and less time on others. With that out of the way, let's talk about Kirito.
Yes, let's talk about Kirito.
Kazuto Kirito Kirigaya. Any volunteers? Does anybody want to dig in?
I'll start.
Go ahead.
It's hard to say something about nothing. He doesn't have a personality, but he is the most self-insert of self-insert characters. He has no personality, so you can plaster your own over him. But he's the specialist boy who's good at everything he does. He has his own unique ability, which is dual-wielding swords. And also, all the ladies want he dick.
Yeah,
That's my 10 cents.
Yeah, it's interesting how he covers all the bases, because especially with dual wielding, like I don't know if you remember a lot of like Western like MMOs like early 2000s and how dual wielding wasn't like super common, like in Morrowind, like everybody wanted dual wielding but you couldn't actually dual wield. And then I think there were like more games where it's like, oh, we modded dual wielding in this game that usually just has like a single blade thing. So it's obviously like that's the coolest ability. That's what everybody wants. Everybody wants to big fucking swords. So Kirito is the only person out of 10,000 people in the game who's allowed to wield 2 swords. Everybody else can't. And other than that, yeah, he's like this super cool gamer, and he is in a unique position to capitalize on his gamer skills and actually survive. It's kind of like, it's almost like, you know, those like zombie apocalypse wish fulfillments when you have like nerds going, oh yeah, if there was a zombie apocalypse, I would be totally prepared, totally be able to survive it. Like, he's kind of like that. He just played games the entire life in case he ever ends up being stuck in a video game and has to fight for his life.
That's the other thing too, like once again going back, the big bad even said he programmed in a skill that was given to the player with the fastest reaction time of anyone in it, and that was Kirito, because he's that special. And also people constantly comment on how heavy his swords are, but he wields them so easily.
Yeah. Carnival. Did you like Kirito?
No. How can I like nothing? How can I like that which has no existence?
Isn't that something like Buddhism or something like that?
You're supposed to accept. That's accepting everything is transitory. But this is a bland nothing that just is there for just wish fulfillment and two dicks. Two dicks for the to compensate for nothing.
Look, Carnival. If you see a Kirito by the side of the road, kill him.
Of course I will.
No, he will. You need to deal enough DPS, otherwise his health will auto regenerate.
Oh God, I forgot that was the thing.
No, I'm gonna wait till he's asleep and then throw his body off the edge of the map.
No, I don't think you can do that. I don't think you can actually carry players, or can you? I don't actually know. You can carry players in
Just
this.
roll him like a log.
Yeah,
We
because
know we can because he was carrying Asuna during their honeymoon.
you're
Look.
right.
Look, Bear, just start blasting some Limp Biscuit and start rolling that shit.
I mean, there's this one scene where a band of killers basically tries to murder Kirito, and it's like 6 or 7 of them, and they're all wailing on him, but they're doing no effective damage because their DPS output is less than 600 every 10 seconds, and he heals 600 every 10 seconds, so he just stands there and takes all the damage and doesn't care. So basically, whatever would happen, Kirito would have some special ability to get through it.
Also, that one is the one where he says that line about leveling systems being unfair.
Yeah. Tia.
The thing about him not having a personality is that I think the narrative flaw of this is that it's basically tell, don't show, instead of show, don't tell. Because, like, a lot of what Kirito does is kind of incomprehensible. Like, the whole thing about when he first decides that he's going to make himself a hated player and come up with this beaters nonsense, which there's no really explanation for, why did he decide that he just wants to make people hate him for no reason? Like, does he just hate people? Is he really just that devoted to the solo player lifestyle? And yet, it's not like he kind of seems like he's a loner, but it's not really well established that he just doesn't like people. He doesn't want to hang out with people because the details aren't there. Like there's no body language. There's not in the way he talks to people. He seems reasonably social, if not very skilled at being social. So it's like, okay, so why are you making these decisions?
Yeah, there's a scene where, like you said, he makes everybody hate him because he's a dirty beta tester and a cheater, aka a beater. And yeah, I did not understand why he took upon himself to be hated so much. I felt like it might have been, if everybody hates me, then they'll band together and work with each other, then whatnot. But I don't know, like it made no sense. Like there was no real actual reason to do it at that moment.
Let's make our fantasy racism worse.
Because he didn't do it to cover for the other beta tester that nobody knew was a beta tester. That he didn't do that. Like he didn't do it to cover him. He didn't do it.
Yeah, that would have made sense.
He didn't do it because people weren't like banding together. Like everybody worked perfectly fine together to take down the boss. It's just like they got blindsided. So there was no reasoning why he would want everybody to hate him. Like it was just like there.
So I mean, that's Kirito in a nutshell, though. Like he is wildly inconsistently written, depending upon whatever mood, and it is awful. Because sometimes he's an edgy teen, other times he's super friendly and wants to help everyone, and there's no in between. It's just all over the place.
And does anybody else want to add anything before we move on? Okay, I'll assume that's fuck Kirito. Okay. So let's talk about Asuna. I tried to get like the best shot of her I could that where she didn't look like Moe or
Where she wasn't threatening suicide, yeah.
yeah. So let's start with Asuna. Tia, how do you like Asuna?
I would have liked Asuna a lot. Like, you know, I'm all about hyper competent female characters, but we don't really get and much beyond that because, as you guys pointed out earlier, her hyper competency is basically set up to make Kirito look good. Like he has made the proper choice in which mate he has selected because this one is skilled, has maxed out all her skills. Like I said, there was just such a wild personality shift between her first appearance and her second appearance. We never get that explained. We never find out why she is in this game. Like, we don't find out anything about her other than like she likes to cook. And like I actually didn't like dislike the cooking episode because it was something that with a little more finesse, it could have been a really good character building episode. Unfortunately, the two characters that are in it don't have character.
I mean, that's also the episode with the creepy stalker.
Oh right. Sorry, the bodyguard.
Yeah.
Yeah. Corbin, how did you feel with Asuna?
She was doomed from the start. She exists solely to be there for Kirito. Like, her entire purpose is to be the love interest in nothing more, nothing less. And, like, yeah, she's pretty competent at first, but it's pretty obvious where it's gonna go. Then she's got some weird tsundere bullshit for some reason. And then that goes away. She becomes the lovesick teen and also repeatedly threatens suicide if Kirito dies, which is really weird. And then she sacrifices her life at the end because she'd rather go first than Kirito.
Oh god, no, you just reminded me. Oh, sorry.
Yeah, that's why Kirito goes into a blind rage.
No, you just reminded me of that, like, we talk about how she has, like, no agency, how she's not allowed to do anything. So in the final fight, when Kirito accepts the duel request from the big bad evil guy, he explicitly tells him, I will accept this, but if you beat me, you have to promise to prevent Asuna from killing herself for X amount of time. Like, as in, like, oh, I'm afraid she's gonna kill herself if I die, so I want you to basically block her from being able to do that because you're the GM of this. And it's like, that is such a messed up thing. Like,
it's even better than that because she starts freaking out saying, hey, that's not fair, this isn't okay, why would you do this to me?
Which, you know, yeah, it's messed up on several levels. I'm not even gonna go into that, but yeah. Sorry, continue. I'm sure you had more to say.
She's a deeply unfortunate character in a cast of terrible characters. Like, she was doomed from the start, and there is nothing surprising about that, but my god, the lengths they go to. I still, once again, though, like the gag when she invites Kirito over for the night and starts undressing, and Kirito's like, what the fuck are you doing? She just gives him the deadliest stare imaginable.
To be fair, that was fairly accurate to how MMO erotic roleplay goes. You just, like, turn off all your gear.
I'm aware, but Kirito not knowing what's going on and just being, like, terrified because he's a fucking nerd.
Carnival.
Yeah. When he said he wanted to sleep with her, he just meant in the bed. Like, not doing the hanky-panky, and it didn't occur to him that might be construed a different way.
I can't honestly say anything that has already been said to this, because like I don't have new insights other than, oh, I didn't even remember the thing about the suicide thing. That's
And I watched the next episode of the second season just to see if it
No, it
actually
doesn't
gets
exist. Don't
better.
worry about it.
Oh,
We don't want to fall into this pet Tia. We'll just
The
get
pit
angry.
of despair.
Because also one
you
day,
thought Asuna had no agency before.
look. Maybe one day we'll do the second arc as a podcast episode. Who knows? We can't blow that out.
Yes. the suicide pact, I see.
Okay. Does anybody else want to say anything about Asuna in Arc 1 before we continue? No. Asuna, very unfortunate character. But, speaking of unfortunate, I hope everybody likes ice cream because I have this massive fridge and it could fit 5 people in. Whole guild. So let's talk about the Moonlit Black Cats Guild. We're just gonna talk about them as one entity. So because 3 of them are there just to die, one of them is there to die tragically, and one of them is there to die and be a ghost for a while. So let's just talk about them and all as one thing. Carnival, how did you like this tragic storyline and character development of Kirito as these 5 people died?
I didn't get any attachment to them because as soon as they walked on screen, it's like, you all are sacrifices. Well, bye. I'm not gonna even bother paying attention because it's not worth the emotional effort.
So to explain who these people are for those who don't know, these are. So this is it's the start of the episode where they say, here's the Kirito, the man who saved our lives. And this is a low-level guild of people who ask Kirito to join them after he helped them with something. And even though he's super high level, and even though he is a loner, he decides, I'm going to join a guild. Maybe this is time for me to join a guild. And he joins
For reference, they are 20 and he is 40.
Yeah,
at this point.
Yeah, so he is much more powerful than them, but they don't know. They think they're around the same level. He doesn't tell them. And that later haunts him. So basically what happens is they eventually earn enough money to buy their own guild house. They worked really hard for it and they managed to finally do it. They're all gonna move into a house and they're gonna be a really cool guild. So on the rightmost side is the leader, Keita. And he goes to buy the guild house. In the meantime, somebody suggests, hey, why don't we just do a quick dungeon run to earn some money while we wait for him? And they do that, and they go into a dungeon that's around their level instead of a low level one because we can take it. And they find a secret door, and that secret door leads to a secret room, and that room has a single chest inside. Kirito tells them, wait, stop, and they're like, there's nothing to worry about, don't worry. And they all go inside. Turns out it's a mimic chest, it's a trap, a bunch of monsters spawn, and everybody dies. And it's also worth noting that Sachi, the girl, had a thing for Kirito, and she loved him very much, and he was starting to have feelings for her, and blah blah blah, but they're all now dead. They're all fucking dead. And then Kirito comes back to Keita and tells him, hey, everybody died. And Keita is like, what the hell? And he also tells Keita, yeah, actually I'm high level, I could have stopped them. If I had told you I was a high level, maybe they would have listened to me and not gone into the obvious trap room. And he just jumps off, Keita jumps off the cliff and dies. And then Kirito spends a while trying to figure out what to do with his life, and he's trying to do this event where the reward is a resurrection item, or that's the rumor, so he can resurrect Sachi, because Sachi said something before she dies. Kirito only sees her lips move, and he thought that was her cursing Kirito for not protecting her because he promised he would protect her. And yeah, basically one massive tragic backstory.
He doesn't want to bring her back to life because he wants her to live. He wants to bring her back to life so he can hear him cursing him out for what a terrible person he was, because this was all his fault. The entire episode is it's such a poor narrative decision.
Yeah, there's this entire part where Sachi runs away because Sachi, by the way, uses one weapon, but then they decide they need a vanguard, which I guess is a tank, so they forced her to respec.
Yeah, that was really awesome to do to your one girl in the guild.
Yeah, and they do that, and she kind of runs away a few times, and everybody's worried about her, and Kirito finds her, and they bond together. And basically Sachi goes as long as I'm with you, Kirito, I have nothing to worry about. And he's like, yeah, don't worry, I'll protect you, everything's gonna be fine. Anyway, the conclusion of the episode is that Kirito does manage to get the resurrection item. Turns out the resurrection item only works on people if you use it within 10 seconds of them dying, which makes sense because, those people presumably died very quickly after dying in the game. The nerve gear just fries them, so it's doubtful that after a week he could resurrect somebody. But yeah, let's go more into these characters. Tia, you started like, how do you like this overall?
It's basically fake tension. Like they have no purpose. They don't have they're big characters, so you don't expect them to get a lot of screen time or personality, but if you're going to do this tragic sacrifice, you have to put a little bit more into them to actually get us to be attached to the characters without broadcasting that it's really freaking obvious that you're gonna kill them soon. This was something that an editor should have cut. And just should have said, nobody's gonna buy this. This is a bad plot arc, and it doesn't even really develop. Like the whole purpose of this whole, we're gonna introduce these friends and then we're gonna kill them all, is to inflict pain and trauma on Kirito, but it doesn't. Like that pain and trauma has no effect. It has no meaning, because it doesn't make him he was alone. He was a loner from the start. It doesn't. It's not really well established that he was really lonely. He wanted to hang out with a guild, and now he can't hang out with a guild. He's crushed, and I'll never make that mistake again. It doesn't have any effect on his personality, except I think he mentions it one time to Asuna about why he didn't want to join a guild. There's just the entire episode could be thrown out, and there would be no effect on the plot. And that's not something you want to do when your series is only 14 episodes long.
Yeah, probably the biggest giveaway that they were gonna die is that they're not on the poster, and it's 5 characters, and the entire episode is about them. Yeah. Carnival, how did you like the Black Cats?
Like I said, I didn't even bother wasting the emotional effort to get to know them, because since they're nice and color coordinated, they show up for this one episode. They have been marked to die, and they are doomed. It was just okay. This was around the part where I just really started getting kind of just really bored with the series, honestly. Just I didn't feel like engaging with. By this episode, I just really didn't even bother feel like building up those strength to even engage with it itself.
Wasn't this episode 3?
It is episode 3.
Wow, you gave up very quickly.
I mean, to be fair, I'm pretty sure I ended up goading Carnival on.
And Torpid, did you like the Dead Kitties?
Tragedy party. Oh, what a party it is.
A corpse party, if you will.
Yeah. So this really further establishes this show's fascination with suicide, which is really good, I might add. Because not only does that guy, the guild leader, commit suicide. Sachi was saying that she was actually suicidal at one point and was afraid she was gonna die and yada yada. So they handle that very well. And it was such an obvious, red flags all over the fucking place. It was so obvious it was gonna happen. And the hidden room thing was such arbitrary bullshit. Really, that's how you're gonna kill them off? This complete nonsense? And actually, it is formative for Kirito in terms of the anime, because it is why he is such an edgelord who is afraid of teaming up with people and afraid of guilds, because he's worried he's cursed or some shit.
Yeah, he does kind of reference it a few times, because the big reveal for his dual wielding is when he goes head in first at a boss fight, because other people went in head first, and he was like, oh, no more people are gonna die under my watch because of this. So this kind of haunts him, I think, until then. And I think the implication is also that when he saves those people, and he faints after doing the dual wield because he has 2 HP left, he actually does see Sachi instead of Asuna when he's waking up. So I think like that was the implication that he got finally closure from like this entire incident.
Look, we all know who he really wanted. Let's be real.
I mean, yeah, he wants Sachi. Yasuno was just like a second pick.
It's convenient.
Yeah. Alright, let's move on. This is one of the two characters I probably like the most in the show. Klein. Klein's pretty cool. So Klein is this dude who has no clue about MMOs when he initially starts, and he asks Kirito, "Hey, can you help me out? You look like you look like you know where to go and what to do. You're probably a beta tester. Can you just like show me how to play the game?" And he's like this super like beginner guy, and like there's this entire little scene where he tries to kill a boar, and Kirito teaches him how to do it, and he's super happy about it. And then later on, or later in that episode, when the entire plot happens and everybody's stuck in the MMO, Klein wants to start a guild with his with some friends and invites Kirito, and Kirito's like, "Oh no, I'm gonna walk alone." And Klein is like, "Okay, well, I used to be a guild leader in my previous MMO, so now I'm gonna be a guild leader here because I'm good at it and I like other people." And you kind of like see him like appearing now and then in episodes, and like every time Kirito sees him, he like has either better gear or a bigger posse, or he just seems far more competent, and he's there like until the end of the series. And I think it's pretty cool to have this. It feels like almost I wish we followed Klein throughout this show, because it seems Klein got far more character development than anybody else, but we didn't see any of it. Yeah, go ahead.
I 100% agree. This series would have been so much better if we'd followed Klein. And to kind of jump on what you were saying, in the first episode, it's Kirito that wants to move on to the next town because all the EXP is going to get tapped out. And Klein says, "I'm going to wait for my friends." And that makes Klein, like, he is a guy that will stand up for his friends every time you see him, even though they're in this life or death situation. He has camaraderie with his buddies. They're having fun. They're taking the game seriously, but at the same time, they're not taking themselves too seriously. And it's like, if I was in this game, I'd want to hang out with that guy. I wouldn't want to hang out with Kirito. Screw that guy. Let's go, dress up in samurai armor and go kick some ass with Klein.
Yeah, I completely agree with that. Torpid?
So he is one of the two best like recurring characters. And honestly, yeah, in general, he's pretty neat. He has like this weird character arc and character growth that happens all off screen, and it is a crying shame. And it's also kind of funny because the reason he didn't join Klein's guild is because Kirito is an awkward fuck. He was worried he'd get in the way with him and his real life friends. And it's just, I don't know, Klein deserves a fucking award for putting up with Kirito's edgelord bullshit and taking it all in stride, because holy shit, nobody can manage Kirito like him.
Yeah, that's also worth mentioning, that like even when like Klein sees that Kirito is in a guild, because there's this one like moment where like before the moonlit cats died, like Kirito actually sees Klein, and Klein says, "Oh, you're in a guild," and Klein is actually happy for Kirito. He's not like, "Oh, you joined this guild but not mine." Like, he's like super positive, super supportive. He deserves his own show, and it feels like he's the protagonist of a previous decade of anime, and then it's like, oh, there's no more room for protagonists like Klein anymore. Carnival, did you like Klein?
Yeah, Clyde was great. Again, one of the two characters, which I'm pretty sure we all agree on, we all are also going to agree on the other character, who's like, you know what? If these were the characters we followed, I'd be okay with. Like, this seems like a decent human being, unlike walking self-insert.
Klein is cool, and also he's a samurai, so that's even cooler.
Also, you got the chin scruff, and it's actually pretty good.
Yeah.
Yes.
Like, the only thing they do with Klein, which they don't emphasize too much, but I guess that's because he's off screen, he's like stereotypical, like, pervert, but not like super pervert. More like, oh, you have a sister, you need to introduce me to your sister and things like that.
Is she a cutie? I bet she's a cutie.
Yeah, like he does that kind of stuff, but they don't really have time to do that more than like twice in the entire show, I think. Anyway, up to the next character, Silica, the idol summoner, cute little girl that reminds Kirito of his sister. So Silica, basically sees Silica as a member of a different party, and they get into an argument, and Silica gets super upset and leaves on her own, and she doesn't need anybody else. She can manage, except she can't manage because a bunch of monsters attack her in the forest, and her pet dies, and she's also about to die, and then Kirito saves her. Then Kirito and her, basically Kirito sees that her pet died, and he's like, oh, okay, there's a way to resurrect her, I can help you. Don't worry about it. And she's like, oh, why are you helping me? And Kirito says, oh, yeah, you don't make fun of me, but it's because you look like my sister. And then they travel together on some higher floor to resurrect her pet. And there are various creepy situations she gets into, like in the span of a minute, she gets attacked by tentacles, and then later by like something like a tongue monster or something like that. Like, I know there were like two. No, one was like a Venus fly trap that almost ate her, and then the other was tentacles, I think.
It was weird.
It was weird, and also she's like very young, so even worse. I mean, everybody in this show is like fairly young, but she's like by comparison even younger. Anyway, let's start with this. Carnival.
She has a little character that I was more concerned about. Wait, there's a pet mechanic? What about the pet mechanic? I want to hear more about that. And that we never touch upon this again after her episode's gone. But I'm still like, there's a pet mechanic?
Anything else, or was just a, like pet mechanic that was the focus for you?
That was it, because it's like, okay, it's one episode. This is one of those characters like, okay, this is a one episode character that never comes up again, so it's like, other than like the girl's like, okay, why are we doing this? Why are we doing the tentacle thing again? Why?
Yep.
The problem I have with a lot of the characters is just they're all so one note, I don't really form any sort of like attachment to them.
Torpid, were you attached to Silica?
Silica exists primarily as two things: a vehicle to discuss Kirito's home life about his sister cousin, and also to be another member of the harem. And also, I guess, the pet mechanic, but that's never really fleshed out and still complete nonsense. Also, it exists to be a damsel too. There's that as well.
I think that's like
PKers.
That's almost like every character in this
90%,
show.
yeah.
Yeah. Tia?
Either way, she's very one note and barely there. Sister cousin.
Tia?
Yeah, and most of that one note is, oh, I'm embarrassed that he might see my panties, or, oh, I have a crush on this guy. It very much feels like this is the episode that is playing to all the guys that won't admit they're lolicons, but sure do love that sweet, sweet underage 2D girl.
I completely forgot about the panty shots. Yeah, there's also that. Sorry, like
They weren't there, but she was telling Kirito not to look. Yeah.
Were maybe?
Did you see? I didn't see.
Yeah, I didn't see. I was just like, oh god, we're doing tentacles and an underage girl. That was kind of like took away my attention.
Well, that's the thing too. Is she asked if you didn't see, and then you could see Kirito peeking through his fingers.
Oh.
Yeah, basically what this episode establishes is that Kirito actually does want to bone his sister.
Well, I'll have you.
For a while.
I'll have you know. In the other anime I watch, which is Elfen Lied, I've learned that that's perfectly normal to have relationships in Japan between cousins. So that's obviously okay with Kirito. Also, Elfen Lied is
whatever
terrible.
gets the birth rate up.
hate to break it to you, 57 Prime Minister of Japan Shinzo Abe, but this too will not help Japan's declining birth rate.
Anyway, let's move on.
Let's talk about something.
Let's talk about somebody who has a lot of screen time, but not too much screen time, so he kind of stays in this attitude of, oh, he's kind of cool, I guess.
I love the big black buddy.
Yeah. So tell us about Akil. I presume that's how it's pronounced.
He is one of the characters who gets fleshed out the most, which is kind of surprising. Because he's both a high-end adventurer and also runs a shop, and just kind of does everything for Kirito short of wiping his ass. But in general, he's a pretty solid friend to Kirito, and another one of those people who's good at managing him and putting up with his edgy bullshit. And at the end of the show, they reveal that he's actually probably the best person in the game, because he was the one writing the adventurer guide for everyone leveling up. And he was spending all of the money from his shop towards distributing it.
Yep. An overall nice dude. Carnival, did you like Akil?
Yeah, it was nice. Hey, a black character in anime that's not a stereotype generally murdered. This is alright. It manages to basically be the single character that's the most helpful in the show. Good. I guess a broken clock can be right twice a day.
Tia.
Yeah, one thing that's interesting about him is that he's of the major and or recurring characters, he's the only one that has a side gig. Like, unless you count the fact that Asuna cooks, he's the only one that really has delved into the non-combat parts of it. And that's why, like, Klein and this guy, we should have just focused on them.
Yeah.
It would have been a more interesting show.
Um,
But also, I can deeply relate to that older adult character who is, roped into this thing with a bunch of much younger and more emotionally volatile characters, and is still managing to handle them quite well.
Oh, fuck you too.
Get off my lawn, Torpid!
Yeah, I like this character a lot as well. And again, watching the adventures of Klein and Agil would have probably been much cooler than, anything else in the show. And then another character that, like Celica, doesn't really get more than one episode, but I think is a bit better handled than Celica, is Lisbeth, the blacksmith.
Please, she appears twice.
Oh, does she?
Yeah, she appears once in this episode and once in a later one. Well, no, she has this episode to herself, but she appears briefly in another one.
Oh god, I can't remember. It all blurs together. Tia, how do you like Lisbeth?
If they cut out the part where she decides that she's got a crush on Kirito, that it would have been a lot better. Like, it's another one where it feels like they set up the character to be competent, in order to show what a good choice Kirito makes. But other than that, like, she doesn't. I mean, other than that, she's really kind of forgettable. Like, because we didn't spend a lot of time. Like, half of her episode is spent pining over Kirito and then discovering that she figures out much earlier than Kirito and Asuna that they're totally into each other, and gives up rather quickly and has a broken heart and has to get over it. Like, that's the big chunk of her characterization.
Yeah, the entire ending of her going like, I love him, but they are meant for each other, and then she just like walks away from it like a noble female character. Like, yeah.
Fucking coward.
Exactly. I would prefer her if they went like the racketeer route with her and just made her full on businessman, capitalist, charges everything.
To be fair, Elizabeth Racketeer would be pretty good, actually.
Yeah, no, like, if we could get a show of just Elizabeth Egil and Klein, those are the three viewpoint characters. That would be great, honestly.
Yeah, yeah. Listen here, Sword Art Online people, get onto it.
But my personal feelings on Lisbeth are she does have a bit of personality, which is more than basically any other love interest, but it is completely wasted on being a love interest. And that is probably the worst part about it, because she reads like basically a teen looking for love in all the wrong places. And what my personal favorite part about her is at the beginning of an episode, they show a shot of her younger with two old dudes. She's reminiscing about it because it's basically her before she got the dye job. It was really confusing that it was there.
Yeah, I feel like if they, yeah, she feels like the most fleshed out female character, but sadly she's a tragic character, and that she has to fall in love with Kirito, as all female characters do. But she showed the most personality of anybody, or of any other female character in the show, I'd say. Well, not counting evil player, killer, assassin lady. Um, but yeah, let's move on to Yui, aka the child,
God.
No.
aka the child, aka the AI controlling the emotional well-being of all players, aka I don't know, plot. I don't even know why she's there. Like they get an artifact from her. Yeah.
Someone from the Japanese government paid for these extra stories to be put.
Well, who wants to start? I'm leaving this up for pickings. I don't want to talk about her. I hate her.
It's like there's an interesting idea in here that is just like that. In another series, might have been good here. Like, oh, the game is designed to run autonomously and then creates NPCs that do things for like emotional support and things. This could be a really interesting thing to dig into, but no, she's co-opted to be here, have a child, let the protagonist have a child and parenthood, and it's frustrating because like in the last like few minutes of her episode, it's like, oh yes, the entire game that she's been watching the entirety of the Aincrad incident happen in real time, effectively, and seen every event. This could have been done, so we could have had her come back. Oh, that's why Kirito at the end was able to survive. Was able to start surviving because now that she was able to be back in the system, she was able to fight against some of the programming that the big bad made. But no, instead it's just weird magic willpower.
Tia, Torpid, who wants to go? I'm hiding from this.
It would have been a lot better if they hadn't gone the whole child angle. Like the characters in AI would have been a lot more interesting if did mommy and daddy and no, it was just I just got such creepy vibes off it with the whole they're parenting this girl because they want to form a family that with this girl that they barely just met and they're kids themselves. They should not be raised. I think that is actually the exact notes I put to myself was they are kids. They should not be raising one.
Yeah, and there is even like this moment where she calls them Mama and Papa, I think, as well, and they're heartbroken.
Oh yes, and she's another female character that has to be saved by Kirito because he hacks into the system when she's being deleted and saves her programming into the free memory of his nerve gear, and it was such an ass pull.
And she becomes an artifact, which is a blue gem called Yui's heart. Torpid.
She's a pet.
She's a pet. Torpid.
Just Asuna turns to Kirito. Oh no, I'm teen pregnant.
No,
But
not in the MMO. It doesn't have those mechanics yet.
damn it. But no, I'm not even gonna talk about fucking wasted potential. That's been covered. She as a character is the purest fucking filler. She exists solely to be unmade and serves no other purpose in the plot. They never address anything about her ever again, and nothing she did was meaningful. She just kind of existed to be this little kid for this couple to have. This couple of teens, 16 and 17 years old. And also she said the D word and my brain fucking melted. But yeah, it's real weird. Real.
Also, just a note: the reason why this AI stumbles upon
God.
upon Kirito and Asuna, so because the AI was blocked by the GM, aka the owner, she could not intervene with everybody who was like depressed or needed emotional support. So eventually, she got overflown with, I assume, bug reports or whatever. And the only two people that she found in the entire MMO that consistently had a positive, like, emotional wavelength or whatever were Asuna and Kirito. And then she sought them out, but as she was seeking them out, she lost her memory. So for a while, after she finds them, she's just like, oh, mama, papa, and stuff like that. Pretty bad.
Has she met Klein?
Yeah, like it makes you wonder. Like they go like, "Oh, nobody has a positive attitude." I'm kind of like, wait, are like Klein and Agil and like everybody just like secretly super sad all the time? Like,
Yeah, but you see, they're not lovey-dovey teens.
yeah. Anyway, let's move on to my least favorite character and the final character we'll be covering.
Oh yeah.
Kayaba Akihiko, aka
Yeah.
the person who invented the MMO, designed the MMO and the nerve gear, and then hijacks the MMO and makes everybody try and fight to survive. And he also acts like the guild leader of the biggest guild in Sword Art Online, and also fights Kirito at the end. So this is him. This is the shot you see is from him at the end of the series, when after they had a double KO, the MMO is collapsing, everybody's getting logged out, and then he's watching the horizon together with Kirito and Asuna. Now, I'm just gonna start here first. The reason I fucking despise this character, like, from the bottom of my heart, is because it's like, it's a horrible villain. Like, he doesn't... Basically, they ask him, why did you do all this? And his line is, yeah, why did I do this? It's been so long, I don't even remember. So we have this big bad evil dude who has no motivation other than to be a dick, and it's like he didn't even have a shitty reason. Like, oh, I wanna tell a story. I wanted to experiment and see how people react. I wanted to make people value reality more. Like, I don't know. It's just like nothing, no motivation, just like a fucking plot device.
I mean, he does clarify, and it is still fucking worthless, and that he always dreamed of a castle in the sky, that he's gonna make that castle and have it be his castle, and Einkrad was his castle, and that's it.
Okay, you don't need to turn it into a fucking roguelike to do that and put people like in a life or death situation.
No, that wasn't the real castle, and Kirito hopes he finds the real castle someday.
Our castle is in another MMO.
See, I could even get behind him. Just, I wanted to be a dick and murder these 10,000 people. Just give him something.
That's the other thing too.
He's so absent from the series that's like, there's because of the structure of the series that they establish him as a big bad, but then we go into the short stories. He comes out of nowhere, and he has no impact.
There's actually a series that I've read called Imawa no Kuni no Arisu, or Alice in Borderland, that kind of tackles this whole we're going to put people in these awful death games and, set up these villains that are making them do it. And, the main characters are eventually going to ask these villains why they're doing it. And the Alice in Borderland just handles the whole concept of fighting for your life in awful games so much better that, like, don't watch this. Go read Alice in Borderland if you want, like, a death game.
Torpet.
But yeah,
Oh, go ahead.
yeah, his whole
sorry.
thing was, I want to see this castle in my dreams, and so I'm gonna make an MMO and put 10,000 people in this MMO forever, and cause untold suffering. And oh, by the way, about 4,000 of them end up dead.
Yeah. Torpet.
God. I hate this man in multiple respects. I'll start off with like the whole guild leader thing. He decides that he's gonna take part in the game himself, I guess, and be the head of the biggest raiding guild. And also blatantly cheats the whole time because he's too much of a fucking coward to actually face it head on. By A, giving himself a special ability, and B, as we learn later on, has basically a cheat mode on that makes it so he can't lose his health past a certain level. And at one point he reveals, oh yeah, so what I was gonna do is I was gonna betray y'all, like right here, and then I'd go to the top and I'd be the final boss at the top floor, and you have to fight me there, the Demon King who betrayed all of you. And it's like, what?
Yeah,
It just comes out of nowhere.
Yeah, like he said that, and I was like, "Oh, is this like a Princess Tutu? Is he his only motivation? I just want to create a dynamic story. I don't even care what it is, as long as it's engaging. Like, oh, are we gonna do this? It's like not even that. He's just like, oh, I don't know. I don't remember why I'm doing this. I don't care."
And then there's the deal with Kirito, which I covered before being complete fucking nonsense. And then they try to have this like vaguely redemptive bit for him at the end, in spite of the fact that he is a mass murderer who killed thousands of people. But you're supposed to be okay with him now, that he's looking out at looking out the horizon, just thinking. Like, no, you haven't earned this. You do not get this. You killed thousands of people. You do not get any form of redemption. Also, the other thing too is that he is a fucking magical scientist dude who invented the nerve gear because of this game that he wanted to make just for it.
Yeah, I hate this character. I hate everything he stands for. And also, he designed Sword Art Online, which is like very badly designed. So I hate him even more. Anyway, we're gonna wrap this up because we've been going for almost 2 hours. So we're gonna do our thing. I'm calling it a thing now because this is the second time we're doing it. We're gonna do the Isekai questions. We're gonna go. You don't have to elaborate too much on it, so let's not dwell on the questions too much. But would you mind ending up in Sword Art Online, like in the same situation as everybody here? Carnival.
Fuck no. But that doesn't mean anything, because again, 30 to 60 years from now, this is going to happen, because some tech monster is going to think, oh, we got the technology now to do this. I wonder what's going to happen if we try this. And then, oops, this happens.
Tia.
No, this MMO seems boring as shit. Like the whole forced player avatar aside, like there's no magic, there's no other races, there's no good world lore. This is a boring ass MMO. Like, why were people excited about this? Because of the combat, I guess. Yeah, and I prefer my role-playing stories to be actual role-playing stories. And also, I generally don't play MMOs because I hate other people, so I don't want to play games with them.
So you'd be like Kirito.
No, because I would be a whiny-ass bitch!
Torpid, would you like to end up in Sword Art Online?
Fuck no! The game is uninteresting as hell. Like, it's really boring. Also, that no magic thing makes no sense because there's magic bullshit all over the place. And also, this game's a fucking raw deal for anyone that isn't Special Boy Kirito.
Yep. Go ahead.
It fucking sucks.
Yep. My answer is I would not like to be in this game for a multitude of reasons. I already complain about games all the time, and then being stuck in one I would complain about on my entire life would just do me in. Second question: if you could pick any MMO to be stuck in, assuming it looks and feels realistic to you while you're in it, which would you pick? and there is no permadeath to make the question a bit easier. Tia, let's start with you this time.
Like I said, I don't really play MMOs. Can I get like in a Pokemon MMO? Because I would really like to hug a Bulbasaur.
Sure, I'll allow it. But you have to tell me your team.
I would really like to try a grass mono team one of these days. But knowing me, I would probably just like pick my favorites like Torchic and Flygon and Bulbasaur, of course. I'm pretty easy to please. If they're cute, I like them.
Alright, Torpid.
First off, the secret is an entire team of fun, bro. But also, I would honestly probably say the Elder Scrolls Online. Gonna be real, because it's one of the more interesting environments, and also I kind of like the lore.
Alright, Carnival.
Final Fantasy 14.
Gross.
At least. Sorry.
Which class and job would you pick?
Since it's basically your equipment decides your job, it'd be the Red Mage or Samurai.
Alright, and Torpid, which class would you be in Elder Scrolls Online? And race.
A good one. I forget the classes, honestly.
I would probably just be in Champions Online. Fuck it, I know that one the most. And also, that is the only MMO where story-wise you get downtime, so I could just like hang around and before I fight shit. Anyway, final question. So did the cast and Sword Art Online end up with a shit deal, or does this count as wish fulfillment for them? Most of them, or all of them, or any number of them. Torpid.
I mean, Kirito obviously wish fulfillment. Most of the characters had no personality. Otherwise, it's kind of a raw deal in general. It fucking sucked.
Carnival.
Is your name Kirito? If so, then yes, this is wish fulfillment. If not, burn in hell.
Tia.
Plot contrivances aside, it seems like the only character that mentions actually like kind of enjoying being there even after the whole reveal is Asuna. Like, she talks a little bit about how, she kind of pushes forward and wants to get out and get into the real game, but also she's enjoying pushing herself. At least she did that a little bit in the second episode before they did her complete personality switch.
I was gonna say, she wants to get out of the game to bone down with Kirito. Like, it's literally her entire motivation is wanting to be with Kirito.
See, so if you die...
Well, initially, she mentioned, talking about how she feels like every day that she's in the MMO, she feels like she's lost a day of her real life. But, of course, her mind changes on that when she meets Kirito.
Yeah.
It's pretty bad.
Yep. Yeah, I agree with most of that. Kirito and Asuna seem to be enjoying themselves. Everybody else gets kind of shit deal, and some people just cope with it better than others do. But yeah, this is where we're gonna wrap it up. This has been 2 hours talking about Sword Art Online, more than we talked about El Hazard, sadly. Looking back on those lovely days of the first episode.
Halcyon days gone by.
Exactly. Before we go, let's talk about where folks can find you all. Carnival, where can folks find you? What do you do? Plug yourself.
You can find me streaming at twitch.tv/King Carnival. I'm slowly getting back into streaming, probably going to either on Saturdays.
You cut off there. Can you repeat yourself? Sorry.
Sorry, I was saying you can find me on twitch.tv/King Carnival, where on Saturdays we're going to probably stream either Nier Automata or Bayonetta 1. And you can follow me on Twitter at Toku_Carnival.
Alrighty, Tia, where can folks find you? What do you do?
I'm at twitch.tv/TiaCall. I stream more on the retro and the RPG variety. I'm actually going to be starting a new game on Friday because I just finished up my Pokemon Emerald Randomizer. which is available on my channel if you want to watch through the VODs. I stream on Fridays at 7. I stream on Tuesdays at 7 as well, as long as I don't forget. Where I'm trying to do stuff that isn't as long. Assuming I can get it up and working, I'm going to be probably streaming Super Mario Land 2 Randomizer on Tuesday.
And they have a randomizer for everything these days.
Super Mario Land 2 is kind of, that's actually one of the games I grew up with, so seeing a randomizer for that one's actually pretty exciting for me. Like that and Pokemon are like, because there's a lot of them, like there's a bunch of Link ones that I've not played most of the Legend of Zelda games. Confession, revoked my nerd cred. There's a bunch for like Super Metroid that, again, I'm not super familiar with the game, so I wouldn't be able to enjoy them as fully. So yeah, I'm kind of excited about Super Mario Land 2.
Hashtag wins Alex Kidd randomizer. Anyway, Torpid, your time to shine.
Oh yeah, twitch.tv/torpidtypist. I stream during weekdays and just kind of a random hodgepodge of stuff, whatever I feel like.
Alrighty.
Also shitpost at twitter.com/torpidtypist.
Alrighty, and you can find me on twitch.tv/realsweetbear if you don't already follow me. And I'm also on twitter.com/mdkii, that's MDK Roman numerals 2. And yeah, that's about that. We're gonna wrap this up now. Thank you all for listening, and we'll catch you next month for a next Isekai. Bye bye.
Night.